Welcome, everyone. This is Pally Needles, and you're listening to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at latest in LOTRO and here at LOTRO Players. And this week, I am joined by Cinders.
Hello! I'm here.
All right. So let us start out with our game news for this week, where Scenario provided us with a tour of Umbar, which is the third of the zones that he is going through for the upcoming expansion, The Legacy of Morgoth. And this one, I'm trying to remember. Oh, yeah, this one is the area, I believe, that has the elves in it.
Oh.
So we'll find out more about that. I don't think most of the inhabitants weren't in there yet, so not much on the way of there, so we didn't see much on the matter. But yes, there is a new line of elves that are being introduced with this expansion pack.
Okay.
So we'll see more about them, I guess, in the future when they begin the previews.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they announced that this is the final weekend to complete the lead the charge deed for Dragon and the Storm. So if you want to get that lead the charge title, then you need to go and complete this by early morning on October 1st. So that means that you might hear this before that expires. Yeah.
It should post before then.
Should post before then, yes. Though, of course, if they don't normally listen to it until a few days after post, then that's another matter.
Yes, that would be problematic.
Yes. Now, we do have some announcements on upcoming events. First off, the first bull roar for Legacy of Morgoth is planned for October 1st. So that means we will have an opportunity to go in there and
check it out.
Have our own look at these new landscapes and find out what's up ahead. Have a look at everything in there. But anyway, that is scheduled for October 1st. So we are getting closer to having these things available in there. So I'm hoping that things are all better shaped on it by the time that comes up. And also happening on October 1st is the next round for the hardtack crafting event. So if you want to go to Thorns Hall and join in on those festivities, you could do so. That'll be October 1st, and I still don't know quite exactly how long these things last, so I don't have an end date on there, but it starts on October 1st. Now on October 2nd, they have a small update to the game, which is going to be update 41.3. And in there, they have a number of release notes in there. Cordovan gave a few of them, but we'll, of course, go through the full set of them next week after the update is made and the release notes are public. First off, the Nazgul will become immune to force taunts.
Oh.
So that's something to keep in mind that's going to be happening in there.
I don't like that.
Well, we're talking about Nazgul here.
I know. I still think if I'm standing in front of them going, hit me, hit me, hit me, that they should at least give me some attention. It takes a lot of work to shake a shield when you're a hobbit, okay? And the shield is like twice your size. Show some respect here.
I'd say you stick a Pavis into the ground and you just pop up from behind it, hit, and then pop back behind this Pavis.
I probably could.
Yes.
Be like, neener, neener, neener. And we all know nobody can resist that. What happened? Some hobbit just went at me. very rude to ignore the Hobbit.
Right. Also, they're planning to have several adjustments to the Dragon in the Storm. Sounded like most of them are going to be tweaking the solo version up a little bit because, let's face it, the solo version is a little bit of a joke right now.
Oh, so in other words, this is the time for me to do it? I'm pretty sure that's what Pineleaf just said. This is the time for Cinders to get in there and do Dragon in the Storm.
Well, we'll have to go and see. You haven't had a chance to do it yet?
No?
All right, yeah. I guess this is the time to do it. Now, I don't know how much the adjustment is going to be made by. I guess I could find out by doing a before and after.
Yeah.
Next is concerning birds. Apparently, on rare occasions, the birds, which are supposed to be auto-consumed, when you see a bird, it gets auto-consumed and placed into your collections panel. Apparently, every once in a while, the bird doesn't get auto-consumed. Now, I haven't had that happen to me yet, but apparently some people have had. And the trouble is that the birds are not bound currently because they figured they're auto-consumed, so they didn't need to make them bound. So apparently some people were trading birds or something like that. So, and since it's a record of birds that you spotted, there shouldn't be a physical thing to trade or anything like that. So therefore, they are going to make them bound in the rare case that it is not auto-consumed. So that if you do get one in your inventory, you should double click on it so that it will be consumed and put into your collections panel.
I suppose that's one way to deal with illegal trading of animals. It's the illegal wildlife trade in LOTRO right there.
yeah, the illegal wildlife trade in LOTRO. And next then, Bingo Boffin, they are going to activate it on the Umbar and Mordor servers, and that it'll be active up to a change of name, which is the quest in Eregion just before they start thinking about going into Mordor. Since Mordor's not open yet, they'll just have to bring Bingo Boffin up to where it goes before that time. So therefore, Bingo Boffin will be activated up to the point where you can't go any further due to the fact that Moria is not open yet. Now, of course, Scenario will continue his landscape preview. So also on October 2nd is the next installment, and that'll actually be the final installment for open landscape previews, even though on the 9th there will be another one that relates to looking at the instant spaces, so that we have a preview of those also.
Nice.
And the next Forester event is expected to start on October the 15th.
So it sounds like that's managed to stay up for a while now.
Well, we'll have to see. I think it.
It was open for a while when we were playing with Krister, like it was running the last Forester event.
Yeah, so I think the last one he actually survived whatever was going on in there, which is good news on there. So we'll see if both of them managed to go all the way through without any hiccups, and that they could actually go on a regular schedule after that. And that's it for the things that are upcoming in the next couple of weeks. So let's head into store sales. Cinders, what's on sale?
So you can make your piece of Middle-earth shine and get 30% off of select housing decorations, housing sets, and cloaks through October 3rd. And the weekly coupon, if you do not have your own personal Hobbit Guardian, you might be interested in a free Tome of Defense that lasts for 6 hours with the coupon code SHIELDWALL. SHIELDWALL, now through October 3rd as well.
Whee! So let's go into the site news. First off, we have, and that our site news this week is a quest pack review for the Corsairs of Umbar. So it's time for us to look over the entire story of the Corsairs of Umbar and how it's going and what we think about it and all the things that were in there, which is Good, because I suspect that starting next week, we're going to have a great deal of talking about the next expansion, the Legacy of Morgoth. And in fact, the fact that there is an update scheduled for October 2nd, the day after the first bull rubber for the Legacy of Morgoth, makes me wonder is, even though I had last week said that I think that the store pre-orders will be opening up around October 10th, I'm beginning to think it might be closer to October 2nd. I guess we'll find out. We'll see whether which of those two predictions is right or if both are wrong.
You never
But
know.
you will never know. But for now, we've got the Corsairs at Umbar to look over that and see what we thought about everything there. And we are going to begin with the landscape. And we have 6 regions that I put in there. And the first of those, of course, is King's Gondor, which, well, I have to say that there isn't much new in the King's Gondor, since this is the existing landscape that we had previously. Well, it's based on the King's Gondor, because it
Yeah.
includes all the lands we traveled through before going towards Minas Tirith. Now we're going the opposite direction.
Yeah. I feel like, didn't the change that they made, I feel like it changed some of the, like, the control points that there were.
Yeah.
So, like, the war machines and stuff like that had been such a part of the Siege of Gondor areas, like, now you're mostly doing cleanup around that. It's not like you're constantly fighting enemies.
Right. You have these pocket camps all over the place for enemies that haven't been quite
Cleared out.
cleared out, and still trying to figure out what are they going to do and all that. So yes, you do have pockets of enemies, but now it looks like, yeah, the Gondorians are mostly in control of the area with some small pockets of enemies, instead of it being a case of enemies all over the place and running rampant all over the landscape.
Yep, and roads are open, commerce is resumed,
Yeah.
etc.
So King's Gondor then, as I said, same place, but it looks like that there are some things that happen, I guess, during the siege that might have caused a little extra destruction, but also they're doing cleanup and getting things, people inhabited once again, and not in fear of an invading army getting ready to come and trample them.
Yep.
So then let's now start to look into the new areas, and now begin with Outer Gondor.
Just a second. I want to note that King's Gondor has become Mary Rose's favorite region. And then we can.
Oh, it has.
Yes.
Oh, it's her favorite region now. Okay. Oh, yes. Let's see. King's Gondor to become her favorite region. Does she have any reason why? Any particular part of it?
I don't know. That was posted 2 seconds ago.
Yeah. Well then, while she thinks about that, we can then go into Outer Gondor. And Outer Gondor includes the regions beyond, to the west of where we had before. So therefore, west of the Blackwold Vale.
Yeah.
Oh, Mary Rose loves Gondor with no dark skies. Okay, yes.
I'll second that one.
Of course.
Not
yes.
a fan of the dark skies either.
Not a fan of the dark skies. Yes, going through Gondor again with nice, bright summer skies. That is also, so between being summertime and it being no longer with that darkness that was spread over during the war. Yes, those are many good reasons to really appreciate King's Gondor.
Mm-hmm.
Now for Outer Gondor,
there's a whole section that had pink trees. And to do some of the deeding, you had to go kill wolves in the pink trees. That was fun.
I was trying to remember the pink trees.
Yeah, they had the like pinky, whitish, silvery leaves, and there was a whole like just as you crossed into Outer Gondor, if you go off to the right from the road, there's like this whole valley area of them.
I guess you would notice it better than I would.
Mm-hmm. Probably. It kind of catches my attention. Sam
Yes, it
loves
would.
Halloween and likes the spooky and evil regions.
So he prefers the old Gondor then.
Sounds like maybe.
Yes, it sounds like a maybe on there.
Moria, Mordor, Goblin Down.
Goblin Town, yeah.
Um, no,
So, okay.
one of the things I liked about Outer Gondor was kind of, I want to say, the variety of different biomes that they packed into one area. So, like, you could go up and you could go into the the area that had the dwarves, so it was mountainous, and then you could go across to the, what is it, Parth, whatever, where it was like all grassy rolling hills,
Oh,
and
Penethkalen.
yes, that one. And then
Okay, but the dwarves weren't they in King's Gondor, not in Outer Gondor?
I thought they were Outer Gondor. Maybe they were King's Gondor. Uh, Let me look at a map.
Unless there was another set of dwarves that I missed.
Well, I might just be misremembering my map. So
Yeah, but they are a new area of King's
yeah, of
Gondor.
King's
I
Gondor.
think is part of the Gondor that wasn't open back when we went through the other direction. So yes,
Okay,
it could
yeah.
be very easy to remember that it existed and was part of King's Gondor.
Yeah, so it was King's Gondor. Never mind, my bad.
Okay.
And I think that's where the pretty trees were too, now that I'm looking at this map of Outer Gondor.
Ah.
Okay. It's alright. I will survive being wrong this time.
but we did have in Outer Gondor. We had the Great Lake in there. We had the wine country.
Mm-hmm.
And those up in Penethkalen. And then down in Anfalis, it was
Londkirian.
So of course we had all these coastal cities and all that stuff, and the place was built like the Jurassic Coast. It looks like, because I could just imagine the type of tides that they get over there.
Oh, I'm sure. That was crazy.
Right, yeah, so Lion Carrion, right, being quite the example of it, being at the mouth of the river. And they claim that Lon Carrion is the oldest city in Gondor. So in other words, the first city that was founded by the Númenóreans.
I could see it.
Meaning, so that it even predates Pelargir.
Yeah.
So we have all those little coastal cities down in there, and we quest down through there, down in Anfalis, and then we move up into Penethkalen afterwards as the story goes along. So that's the second of the regions, Outer Gondor. So yeah, nice, pretty area. Then we go to the Shield Isles for quite a change in scenery, because now we're going into semi-tropical to tropical islands.
Hang on.
What?
This map doesn't look right.
Which map?
Sorry, I'm looking at the maps, and the map of King's Gondor doesn't show the area with the dwarves either.
It doesn't?
So I'm looking to see if there's a better one. Because the one I just looked at didn't it? I was like, wait a second.
I would have thought that it would be quite easily visible in there.
You would think.
Well, it might be hard to see because, well, it would be specifically in, well, it'd be in the same area where roaming.
So the maps are treating Amphilis as separate from King's Gondor and from Outer Gondor.
Well, Amphalis is part of, well, they have separate maps for Amphalis and for Peniscalin, but together those two make Outer Gondor.
Okay.
And I believe that the
maps the map gives you an option to go to Amphilis and to Outer Gondor. So sorry, this might just be me being semantic.
Yes.
But now it's bugging me, so I'm going to figure this out. So, hang with me, folks.
All right. Yes. Anyway, so I believe that Lower Lebanon is where the dwarf area is located.
Okay.
Because I think we go to Lower Lebanon after we are in Pelargir. And Lower Lebanon includes Firuzahar.
Okay.
Firuzahar are where the dwarves are located.
Okay, now I want to know where Outer Gondor actually is, if you can go to Amphilis or to Outer Gondor. Where is it?
I don't know how you can why you'd have a choice between the two, because Amphilis is part of Outer Gondor.
You would think so. I just know this Peniscalin map is giving the option. It has to Amphilis and to Outer Gondor. And so now I'm very confused. And I don't like being confused.
You don't like being confused. No. All right, let's see. Okay. So let me look at this Peniscalin map just so I can understand what the... Right, it says to Amphilis to... Okay. Yeah, that is a rather strange thing to say in the map because...
I mean, it's included in Outer Gondor's maps, as is Amphilis, but...
Yeah, because...
But they're treating them as separate.
Yeah, that sounds completely messed up.
Maybe it's just an outdated map.
Yeah, that's always a possibility because Peniscalin plus Amphilis is the definition of Outer Gondor.
I will agree to that. I'm just saying. The map suggests otherwise. Which is just rude.
And I forgot what they would call the area that includes Androst, which we haven't explored yet. Maybe someday we'll get out that far west. Yeah. Beyond Outer Gondor.
Yep.
Anyway, so now can we go to the Shield Isles?
Yes, we can go to the Shield Isles.
All right, so the Shield Isles where we go to some islands.
That was fun.
So I think these are the largest set of islands that we've ever been. I know we occasionally have islands such as Tinadir, which is...
Isn't that just basically one big island, though?
Yeah, Tinadir is just one big island, while the Shield Isles is this archipelago that's in the middle of the bay.
I think we can say it is the largest archipelago we have encountered in game.
I think it's the only thing that will qualify as an archipelago in the game, and because I don't think we're going to count those little islets that are in the middle of a fort or anything like that.
It can be both. It can be both the biggest and the only. There's nothing that prevents that.
Absolutely nothing that prevents that. If it's the only, it will have to be by definition the biggest.
Precisely. Yeah.
Yes. So here we have several islands. There are two, actually three fairly big islands and several smaller islands all throughout the area that you have to explore. So you have to do quite a lot of swimming in order to get from one location to another. Well, I guess you could use the dock masters in order to get to the various locations all the way through.
You can do that. You can use hunter ports. You can use 5-minute cooldowns and multiple milestones if you have them.
Right. All sorts of little ways in which to navigate this area.
But the water is beautiful. It's not freezing cold. You don't get that ugly, frigid water cold business that will freeze you instantaneously.
It's not like going swimming in Forgel.
No, not like that at all. You could literally say, "Come on in. The water's fine" most of the time in that area. And it
Unless
gives
there's a
you,
storm.
yes, it gives you a taste of the tropics. So you get the nice, beautiful palm trees and all of that good stuff. Sandy beaches.
And a caldera.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a caldera lake where that you could explore in there on the big island in there. So
you can also fall in and die. So you want to find the actual path down.
Yeah, you want to find the actual path down. You don't want to go down the fast way into there. So I'm wondering if the volcanism could be responsible for what created the Shield Isles.
Isn't that generally how islands are created?
Well, yeah, pretty much. I guess you got a point there.
Just like the islands of Hawaii, the islands and the Shield area developed from a series of underground volcano activity.
Yes. Though they seem to be rather dormant now if you got a lake in the middle of the caldera.
I mean, probably could blow its top again if it really needed to, but I don't think it would.
Well,
I think perhaps extinct would be the way to describe the volcanoes in the region.
Yeah, I think more likely extinct because if it was formed the way I think it was formed, if there is any more activity in there, there's probably one island in there that has some real volcanic activity, such as the big island in Hawaii.
Right? And also, you can see that the forces of nature have started to wear down the island.
Yeah.
And you start to get those rounded curves to the tops of them, the holes where the water and the wind have blown through.
And of course, rocks that like to tear ships and eat them to pieces.
Exactly.
So that is, of course, they're called Zerar Tarka, the Shield Isles of Umbar. So that's the third region, right? Our first taste of the tropics and quite a variety to each of the islands. And of course, then comes the Cape of Umbar.
Yes.
Just in case you wanted some.
Word to the wise, do not go out and north of Jack's Fanal and then along that edge of the water. You will insta-die. If you go far enough, as we discovered. You will also, on the other side of that little stretch of shaded area in the map, you will insta-die going the other direction too, which we also discovered because we are nothing if not thorough testers of our limits. And by us, I mean me, and Pileyleaf is usually behind me, and I'm like, don't go that far, you'll die.
Now, Sam says that a taste of the tropics sounds like a juice blend from pineapple and mango. And Mary Rose responds, this hobbit smacks her lips at the description of tropical fruit.
With a little bit of coconut water in there. Or maybe it's served in a coconut.
Served in a coconut?
With a dainty little parasol of its own. It's a little umbrella and a fancy straw.
An umbrella?
Yes. That's a good one. Oh, man, if we didn't already have a title for this episode, we've had a couple good ones. What's the episode title? Umbarella.
Oh well, you could say, yeah, Quest Pack review for Umbrella.
People would probably be confused. What's
Yes.
Umbarella? Uh, and the cliffs along the shore between Jacksonville and Rakatab are not pleasant to fall off of. You will break your legs. But they do offer you a couple of different ways down, and you again get to experience the foliage, the beautiful sands. It's great.
Yes. Wonderful trip all the way through there. And eventually you wind up in the big city. And when I say a big city, Umbar is huge.
Yes, it is. And my favorite thing about this, aside from the fact that they did give us a very detailed map that made navigating it much easier, I absolutely loved the amount of detail that went into this city. So, in the process of testing our limits and trying to figure out some of these things, we might have swum around the outside of the sail haven. And what I noticed is that the same attention that was given to the interior areas where people are supposed to be was given to the areas where people weren't really supposed to be, even though it wasn't like game breaking, right? Like,
Well, if they were grain baking, they would probably have just put in an incident part of the ocean or something.
right? You would think so. But I'm guessing most people did not choose to jump in the water and swim around the outside of the sail haven. We just happened to be doing it to try and find a way into the specific area we were looking for because we couldn't figure it out. I was like, well, let's try this way. So we jumped in the water and went swimming around, and I did notice that they gave the same attention to detail to the outer areas as they did to the inner areas that they were expecting people to use frequently. And so I really liked that you could zoom in and you could really see the tile work that had been done to create the mosaics. I thought that was really cool that it had given that much attention to detail. So I really, really liked that. And of course, the sunshine and the fun colors. And for somebody who enjoys color and sunshine and happy, like it really hit all those buttons in the same kind of way as, the, oh, as like Hobbiton and things like that do, where it just feels light and bright and happy.
Right and happy. Yes. Yeah, and everybody's happy there that they're no longer, at this point, they are a free city, which is apparently something that they rarely get during their history because they seem to be always somebody trying to control them. At one point, it was the Numenorians, then I think at one point the Gondorians, that I guess succeeding the Numenorians. Then you had at one point the Haradrim, of course, who were the most recent ones that were trying to rule the place. And so you see all these legacy items of the time when the Haradrim were in control of the place because of all these temples to Sauron that are all over the place. Of course, all those temples are now ruined because apparently Sauron's, I don't know if Sauron was ever there or anything like this, but apparently something is made in the name of Sauron or something like this just collapsed when the ring was destroyed.
Yeah. I don't know how exactly that all came about, but really those are the only areas of darkness in the whole city. At least the above ground portion. And I mean, it's just beautiful. It's got bustling commerce. The baths are fantastic with all the flowing water. And I mean, it has the feel of a thriving, living city. And they did a really good job with that feeling throughout, even in the areas that you hate, with the gutter rats and things like that. Like Like it still maintained the beauty and the vibrancy that you see in the rest of the city, even though it's clearly the area that's poorer.
Yeah, I mean, if the poor parts of the city look like that, you can say how much money must flow through that city.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think really the biggest thing I noticed about it that made it look or seem like poorer, it wasn't even like it was had trash riddling it. It was like there were just less windows in the decor.
Mm,
And it felt like everything was a little bit more compact, and a lot more brickwork instead of the fancy tile work. But I mean,
right.
it wasn't like dark and depressing. It was just like, oh, well, maybe they didn't have the money for the mosaic, but they did have the money for some solid house work,
For a nice solid house, at least, at the very
Yeah.
least.
Yep.
So yeah, it makes you wonder that when you look at this city, is that all right? How much are the docking fees in the city?
Right?
And as you mentioned, of course, also underground because we also had an area that was added later on that was Umbar, which is the underground layer to it.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes, we had this vast city above ground, and then we didn't know that. Oh yeah, there was a vast underground catacomb network under the city that we're going to be exploring after that.
Well, I like how it kind of served two purposes. So, as you get into that storyline, what you discover is that the caverns are designed in such a way as not only can you move goods through it clandestinely, you can also use it to help control things like flooding. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but there were like series of doors and things that could be opened and closed, to help
Right.
control movement and force or move certain things in different directions. Um, and yes, it was dark, and yes, it was murky, and yes, it was like, bleh. But I feel like we've had worse sewer conditions, and it's still better than places like Goblin Town. It's not nearly as confusing to maneuver through. Um, it's got cooler mobs, and it also that same like attention to detail that was up above carried out down below. So anytime there were man-made like walls or whatever, like you still had that kind of attention to detail that you could tell it had been planned that way. It wasn't like it was ramshackle or slipshod building. Like it was clearly intentional and well constructed throughout.
Yeah, I think someone noted this that when the Numenorians build a sewer system, they really build one that lasts.
Yes.
Because
For
I mean,
which
because
everybody is thankful because nobody wants a broken sewer.
right, and because it was built by the Numenorians, that means those sewers are at least 3,000 years old.
And still functioning as designed.
Yes, and that's it for the landscape. So it sounds like we're thinking that the landscape is. What kind of score shall we give this?
I would give it an A plus for attention to detail, sunshine, and vibrant colors.
All right, A plus from Cinders, and yeah, I think that is a fair enough score for that one.
I can't think of anything to complain about. Really.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, you can even zoom in on a cart and see the mosaic work. Like,
Well, one or two people did complain about lag.
well, but that's not the decor's problem,
That's not
right?
the course problem. That's more of the population problem.
That sounds like a player problem, probably because we all decided we wanted to play at the same time. So, like, really not the fault of the designers and the people who created the landscape.
Oh well. All right. So let's now then go into the epic story, which is the Song of Waves and Wind.
I
Is what
enjoyed it.
we really enjoyed it. And so going to the recap here, I suggest that if you don't want any spoilers, you should jump ahead about 10 minutes so that you don't hear what's coming next in here. And that's because this thing starts out in the update before, actually, two updates before the expansion, where you are sent out by LSR to look out and find, going out into King's Gondor, and basically he wants to go and see his people all throughout the kingdom. He wants to see his kingdom and all. And there are a number of people who are reluctant for him to go because they think that the heirs of Castamere may be a threat out there. So the king's decision is to send us out in order to find out, are the heirs of Castamere still a threat? So that's what the first chapter is all about, is we go about exploring the various areas, trying to find out about the rumors of the heirs of Castamere, and in the end, we decide to go undercover and pretend that we are one of their members. And we go in there and we attend a meeting of the heirs of Castamere as they invite a couple of guests. And these guests are from the new government of Umbar, because apparently the heirs of Castamere no longer rule Umbar. I said, what? No, instead, they represent a group called the Kindred of the Coins. The Kindred of the Coins become a major player in the entire storyline. And I remember back when leading up to the release of the expansion, they were doing the slow reveal of the various members of the Kindred of the Coin in there. But during this thing, one of the members of there say, no, this can't be true, and he murders one of the representatives. And the other one that's there is, well, now his widow. And let's just say she is, well, to say she's not happy is probably
She is gonna burn the place down.
not just the building, the entirety of Gondor.
Well,
She
you know what they
wants revenge.
say.
What?
Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
Oh, yeah, she definitely proves that one out in there. Now, we, of course, find out what her plans are right after we help her to avenge her dead husband, which is probably the only reason why she didn't kill us also, is because we helped her to avenge her late husband's death. So eventually she says, all right, leave me. I never want to see you again, pretty much is what she says. Or more likely is, if I see you again, we're going to be enemies.
Yeah, just rude.
Yeah, anyway. So the actual expansion then starts out where we backtrack and meet up with LSR, who has started his tour in there. We report to him what happened. And in there, Eowyn is decided, not Eowyn, anyway, the Queen of Gondor has decided to accompany him, because Arwen is going to make sure that he survives in there. So therefore, Arwen is also there, and while they are there, Arwen heals one of the ladies of Gondor who has been having very, very bad dreams. And this is starting to set up an important part of the storyline where Arwen has great powers with water, which is probably no huge shock considering that her grandmother has great powers with water also, right?
Right.
Yes. So Arwen we set the precedent of her healing in there, and then we go along through the various places in Gondor, all the way up there, and it's about halfway through there where we have a little split in the party where we follow LSR up to the dwarves at Farukazar. Meanwhile, Arwen goes along with the rest of the company out and continue on trek, and we'll catch up with them later. And here, this is where we at first seem to be that we're going to be welcomed there, but then for some reason there's a delay there, and we eventually find out is because they are being visited by Coltec the Cunning, one of the members of the Kindred of the Coins. Now, I have no idea exactly what Coltec is up to. I still have no idea what he is up to in there. And I suspect that a certain person we run afoul with later is probably responsible for it because there's a room in there that seems to have an evil relic from Umbar. And that sounds like the style of another member of the Kindred of the Coin more than Coltec. So that that's the impression I don't know what impression you got on that.
I got the impression that he was just kind of shady, and that
Yeah, he can be shady.
whatever relic they were moving, gave off the same kinds of vibes as places in Angmar.
Right.
Which is really what it strongly alludes to, which is probably why it felt like that. But you don't really get the feeling that Koltek himself is necessarily evil. Just that maybe he's really in it for whatever's going to benefit him, not necessarily the society at large.
Yeah. You get more and more of that feel as you get to know Koltek better because we run into him several times later on in the storyline.
Yeah, and saying he just seems very, I really wouldn't say evil. Like, he doesn't give off evil vibes. He just seems very, like, self-centered and self-enriching. Like, if it's not going to bring wealth to him, why should he care? Kind of a person.
Yeah, there is a possibility on that matter. We will, after that, we then head out to rejoin with the other company, and at that point, the queen is missing, and it turns out that she was having a conversation with Roaming Star. So first she heals this lady in there. Now she is doing some healing for Roaming Star and consulting with Roaming Star. And eventually, we then continue on our story, and eventually we get to the Palace of the Swan in Dol Amroth. And there we find out why she was consulting with the Roaming Star. For it so happens that the prince's daughter is there, and she is consulting with her elf friend that occasionally visits and who she would consult with during the time of the battle in there. And it is there that Arwen then came to heal her. And this is where they officially reveal, and the reason why I say officially is because this is something I've known about for several years, and that is that this elf that's been leading the elves that are nearby was actually Nimrodel. And that Roaming Star had some play of what delayed Nimrodel, that Nimrodel has decided to lead the elves in the area there after she lost all sight of Amroth and all. So now we have that healing of there. So that's sort of this healing story that comes into there. Of course, that's actually a seed for something that happens later.
And my favorite part of that whole area is, okay, so like the Nimrodel, like that's very important epic quest stuff.
Right.
But what really stood out to me from those interactions was having to go hunt down all of the information about, is it Elro here? No, wrong one. Not the Rohan guy, the blonde one.
You mean Aomer?
Aomer, yes, having to hunt down all the information about Aomer and making sure that we don't tell anybody that the Swan, that what's her face wants to know about this because she's interested in him. But you better keep it quiet. And I was like, somebody knows how women operate. That was some good writing there. Like I see that. Yeah, like I may or may not have been doing the same kind of things around that same time. Like, how do I get this information without somebody knowing that I'm getting this information and getting it back to the yeah.
Oh yes, getting that information about. I think that was a side quest, but yeah, it was.
I think it was a side quest, but it was something that we did simultaneous to that, and it just. It cracked me up because it was so accurate.
Maybe a woman wrote that part.
I think that is a distinct possibility, and it's just one more reason to have women in the room. If you're gonna write us, you might as well do it well.
Yes. Then in the next chapter, we the prince apparently has been having found out that Jajax is in the area, and we've been asked to track him down because, of course, Jajax is just likes to playing with the guards and all. You could say, though the guards don't like playing with Jajax. I guess is the best way of putting that.
Yeah, they really don't like Jax very much.
Yes, and there we learn that Jajax had returned to Umbar Bahar Bell. Actually, this is our first real look at the city in there because we're doing this. I can't remember. I think it's a story quest that we're doing in there, and we're following around as Dax met his brother. And there we learn that every. That's when Jajax learns that the Kindred of the Coin are now in command, and that they do not like corsairs that have not sworn fealty to the Kindred of the Coin. So Jajax and Dax get out as quickly as possible. So this is our, and so we do get a chance to actually see, well, through the eyes of Dax here, Coltec, as all, and also the two that we met earlier when we were doing the trace, because this little trip of his was before the husband was killed on that particular group. And after that, we head up and head out into Outer Gondor. And in Outer Gondor, actually, no, before we go to Outer Gondor, we actually go into the Blackroot Vale and go and tell everybody that the king wasn't able to make it to them during her tour there, but he likes to thank them for all their efforts in the war, la 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 la. And the people, let's just say, they did not take it well. And when we
Yeah.
report that back to the king, he says, maybe I better give them a visit after all on the way back, is pretty much what he says there, because he says, all right, yeah, perhaps I shouldn't have snubbed them on the way in there. But he decided to hurry on faster to the western areas because he thought that they needed priority in there. When we do go into Outer Gondor, we meet with the young lord there, who is rather young in there, and he's a bit of a scamp because he went and has a way of running off every once in a while.
Shocking.
Yeah, but Orgolas does start to become more disciplined as the storyline goes.
Yep.
Which is more than we could say about a certain other Lord land called Thorongil that we meet later. But anyway, while we're there, we hear the last wishes of the old Lord of Langstrand, who went and told us all about, left his final wishes in there, and his wife had withheld the last wishes document for several months because she did not want her son to know that he was left the ship of her husband in there, and their husband's ship was docked up in Peneth Galen for the duration of the war, while the Lord Langstrom was going out into fighting the war at Minas Tirith and Pelennor Fields and all that. So once those are all getting out, then we are told to head up into the north, and we meet Thorongil. And Thorongil I remember some of the nice choice words you had for Thorongil while we were doing this quest line. he doesn't know how to obey anything, and of course he called. He was calling the other lord, Ozit. I keep on forgetting. Orgolas. He's calling Orgolas a liar because he's saying that Thorongil was named after the king of Gondor,
Mm-hmm.
which he was. And of course, he said, "No, he can't be that old."
Yeah. Um,
But it,
Go ahead.
but
And then
it,
I'll.
eventually there is a raid against the coastline, and that we go to help this raid. And Thorongil decides he has to go and see this raid, and he gets caught. And of course, what does he do? He tells these raiders that his name is Thorongil. He is telling a bunch of Corsair raiders that his name is Thorongil. You can imagine how that ends.
So, what I liked about how the two younger boys were written,
Yeah,
and their mothers,
and their
because
mothers.
you get to see two very distinct parenting styles. So in Lon Kyrian, when you first meet Orgolas's mom, what she's wanting to keep this information from her son because she doesn't want her son to leave. And she doesn't want him to pursue the same kind of paths that her husband had pursued. And she just really wants him to grow up to be a man who looks after the area that he's in and doesn't go out and travel the world and things like that, right? And so she's
Right.
trying to protect him. But when they talk to her, the king and Arwen talk to her, and they say basically, like he's going to have to rule this whole area sometime. Would you entrust him to our care? We will take him out. We will show him what it means to be a good ruler, to listen to the people and give him this experience with solid supervision. The mom says yes, right? And so you have this
Right.
very kind of calm, measured sense of expanding his horizons in a way that's going to really shape who he becomes. And you can see
Right.
it as he starts to interact with Thorongil up in Peneth Gellin, right?
Right.
So he's interacting with him. He's saying, no, we shouldn't do this. No, we need to stay here. And he's the one who tells the grown-ups that Thorongil has been taken, right? And he goes, I
Right.
knew something bad was going to happen, and I went with him just so that there would be somebody to tell, basically, so that we know what happens to this kid.
Right.
But what you find on the flip side of that is you have a mother who is extremely hot-headed, who is basically she's basically ruling from her emotions. There isn't like a lot of considered thought behind it. And her kid reacts and responds in much the same way. And the very small interaction you have with the husband, he's very much not interested at all in anything that's happening with her or really anything that's happening with the kid. He's just kind of like, they do their thing and I do my thing.
Yeah.
And so they both act in this very hot-headed and rash manner, and it really becomes apparent that that's part of what drives kind of I want to say it's impetuous decision making that isn't wise decision making. Like, these are the people who start wars because they just don't think about it until after they fired the first shot, right?
Oh, in fact, if we did not intervene, that's exactly what would have happened.
Exactly, because this kid gets kidnapped. He's not been killed. He's just been kidnapped because he was definitely disobeying, right? And the mom's immediate response is, I'm going to destroy everybody and everything. Not only is she going to get her kid back, but then she's going to lay waste to everything. Which, like, as a parent, like, you want to protect your kid. raising a son is hard.
Right?
But at the same time, I think that when you, like, just getting your kid back safe, like, that should be enough. Like, you don't need to destroy an entire civilization when one person took your kid and you might get him back. Like, your kid's not dead. Your kid's not even been hurt. He might be a little scared, but, like, that might be a good thing because you really shouldn't run off and disobey like that. Like, if you know, sometimes experience is the best teacher. And so that really greatly contributes to how some of the storylines play out as you move into the Shield Isles as you're following
Right.
this ship down to rescue Thorongo.
Speaking of which,
Sorry, I jumped ahead
that's
of
where
you
we
there.
find. Yes, that's right. Because that's where it happened is that, of course, it is decided that we will go. We decide that we will go and try to rescue this person. In other words, rather than going and laying war upon all this, so we're going to see if we could catch up with them and rescue them. That we will take the ship in question. And Orgalos, he decides to allow us to use his ship
Very kind of him.
to do this. Very kind of him. And we go and then gather a crew of some very familiar people with there. And one of the things that we learned during the investigation phase of it is that we run into an ant grove.
Yes. Yes.
Is
And you meet
Nestinasone.
And you meet the cutest little songbird as you do this quest line too. Oh, it's great.
Cute songbird in there. And we meet it and we learn that an elf that was being tended by the ant happens to have been Corridon. So we do met, and that Corridon had actually already been taken by the kindred in there, and in fact, it was Corridon who talked the Corsairs into not killing. I think that they were thinking of killing him or doing something really nasty to him, but they said that an elf intervened, and the only elf on that ship was Corridon. And so therefore, Corridon managed to talk them into not harming Thorongil so that they were able to have him as a prisoner, and so that we were able to do our rescue in there. So therefore, one of the members of the crew we get is Sigalith. So we get Sigalith, we get Gimli and Legolas.
Yep. So you have a choice. You can take this massive group, or you can take like 5. We have done it both ways.
Right. So the massive group. So you could take extra people, like you could bring Eladon and Elra here if you want them to have
Which
them
we
along.
did. And the bird.
And the bird. But then the first time I did it, I didn't take them all. I just took one, took the minimum in there because and I didn't feel like going to all, especially since if you take everybody, then you've got all these additional side quests in there that you'd wind up doing elsewhere. So I think they said that if you really want to do those side quests later on, that if you recruit them after the whole thing is over, you could still recruit them and then do the side quests. Even though it's a bit immersion breaking, it's something you can do if you really wanted to.
We took all of them when Pineleaf and I ran this section together with Emerlina, and which character did you have? I think it was your Runekeeper.
Yeah, my Runekeeper.
Yeah, we did take all of them, and we ended up with what's his face, the Swan Knight, and his wife.
And this wife,
she was like, he can only go if I go too. We ended up with a dwarf, not Gimli, but a second dwarf. We ended up with Gimli.
Right.
We ended up with Legolas. We ended up with Belandor. We ended up with the bird.
Yeah.
Eladon, Elrohir. Like, we had a massive group when we did it. And then the very first thing that they tell you when you land in the Isle of Storms, if you take the dwarf, is that he was lost at sea. And so Pyleaf and I quit looking for him, thinking, oh, his story is dead. And then we ran into him later, and we were like, oh, actually, he survived. And then we were able to catch him up and follow the quest line into Umbar. You can lose track of them if you are not paying attention and be missing a few people by the time you get to Umbar. But you can go back and get them and bring them along with you.
Yeah. I did say that probably the most useless member of the crew had been Galligam.
Oh, yeah, the shopkeeper dude.
Yeah. The shopkeeper.
You get to Umbar, and he's just like, I'm setting up shop here. I'll make great money. Bye. And you're just like, what? What?
Oh, Galligam. Yeah. And anyway, we head out. Everything's all nice and fine. But then we run into a storm that eventually pushes us against the shield isle. So we don't get all the way to Umbar. Instead, we wind up stranded on the shield isles. Our ship is run aground, damaged, but apparently it's decided that the ship is not damaged enough to be permanently lost. In other words, that they can repair it, but the time to repair it would be longer than the time that we had in which to try to catch up with it. In other words, if we waited until it was repaired, it would be too late to rescue Throngil. So we wound up eventually moving out with heading up north without that thing. But we do various quests within the Shield Isles, and there we meet a man called Driftwood.
Yes.
Now, I don't know. Have you ever done all of Driftwood yet?
Yes, because we finished that whole area. Remember?
Yeah, but I don't mean Emerald. Yeah, that's the. There are two versions of Driftwood.
I know. I've only ever gotten the one.
You've only got one version of the Driftwood. All right, that
doesn't matter how many of the characters I've gotten. I've only had the one version of Driftwood.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of how to talk about Driftwood and whether or not you want me to tell you why there are two versions of Driftwood.
Well, you told me about it as we went through it, so we might as well tell everybody because also we're still in the spoiler alert section. If you're just popping back in, it's probably been like 10 minutes.
Yeah, we're still in the spoiler alert. Yeah.
I'll try to put a little thing in the YouTube video so folks can figure out where to skip ahead.
All right. We have two versions of Driftwood because the main Driftwood, which is the Driftwood I usually get, is in some players' storyline dead. So therefore, they had to create a substitute Driftwood for the players that don't have that person available.
Makes sense.
So in my storylines, most of my characters, that person is alive, and apparently in Cinder's cases, that person is dead, and it all depends upon some decision that you made way, way, way early when the Grey Company was first forming.
Yep.
So after we do that and collect Driftwood, we head out to the Cape of Umbar. And in the Cape of Umbar, we go through the Cape going up there, and there we wind up linking up with a bounty hunter called Cruel Dancer. And we run into her because when we get into a city, into one of the towns along the Cape, there's a murder in here, and it turns out to be Cruel Dancer who did the murder in here because that was the other bounty hunter. So, and we're wondering if they're going to go after Driftwood because Driftwood was thinking of being a bounty hunter, being one of the bounty hunters to go for looking for the kindred of the coin, but it turns out that he wasn't all that real serious on the matter. So, Cruel Dancer decided not bother murdering Driftwood. So once we do that, we link with it, and she decides to help us with our mission if she helps. Basically, we wind up deciding that we will help each other so we could find it because we want to get to the Kindred of the Coin so that we could rescue Thorongil and Corridon. And of course, Cruel Dancer wants to collect a couple of bounties.
Of course.
So we get to Umbar and we go around investigating the city, see what kind of word we can get, and eventually we find out where that there's an underground port. And we go down there, and there we do find Corridon. Yay!
Woohoo!
So we find Corridon, and we're just about to rescue him in there when another member of the Kindred of the Coin arrives. Not the one that we were looking for, but we have Takata the Beast. And we run to her, and she's the one who also does not want to kill. Well, she likes the elf, Corridon. So
Yep.
she's nice to him, but the other members of the crew aren't as nice on that matter. But anyway, she's rather possessive of there. And of course, when Cruel Dancer comes and attacks her, any hope of having a peaceful negotiation with with the beast are completely out the window.
Yeah.
I know that's it. And sort of like Cruel Dancer was helpful in finding the location, but she became a liability very, very quickly.
Yeah, but she wanted those bounties. You gotta make
She
some money
wanted those
somehow.
Yeah, she wanted those bounties in here. And meanwhile, while Tata is fighting Cruel Dancer, I mean, yeah, we're fighting the Cruel Dancer. We are sent. We have a couple of lions that we have to fight. We have to fight. So we fight a couple of lions in there, and eventually we get through that. Rescue Corridon. Siglet is very happy about that, and that because of course Corridon doesn't know that Siglet is alive. So finally they have a chance to meet. Because I think it's the first time we actually see them together because we lose track. We first meet Corridon after we thought that Siglet died. So that's one prisoner rescued. So now we have to figure out how to rescue Thorongil. So we eventually find a way to get into the palace, into the citadel, and we're in there, and they're having a confrontation in here where it looks like that they are trying. Where we have the various, let's say the crueler members of the Kindred of the Coin want to get rid of Thorongil, and Belandor, who's a former Gondorian who's now a member of the Kindred of the Coin, he is protective of Thorongil because he thinks we shouldn't go around kidnapping and killing children in there.
And that's when I first started to really like the guy.
Yeah, that's where we're starting to say that maybe there is some hope for Belandor then in that case. And at this point, Jajax enters and says that, and Jajax enters pretending that he has captured Arwen and leads this elf woman into place. And here we are with there. And at first they're thinking that this is Arwen in here and that they've captured her. But it turns out not to be Arwen, but instead Nimrodel. And Nimrodel spills water into the area. And apparently she's also good with water magic. And this summons the 5 maidens because apparently because the rivers of Gondor fed into the sea, and therefore the seawater that was collected to fill the fountains includes water that came from Gondor in here. So the river maids were able to be summoned by it. And they came in to have their revenge upon these people for what they did upon the lands of Gondor. And so they chased them away and allowing us to rescue Thorongil. Well, after that, we get an interlude where we get to check in on certain side matters. And by side matters, I mean we go all the way to Hlanuk in order to do this.
Well, because it can't be simple.
Yeah, it can't be simple. Yes. So we go into there for an interval in there, and what version of that depends upon what version of on other versions of earlier of Driftwood that you have. Then after that, we go into chapter 8, and chapter 8 is where you go after Azagot. That's Azagot Sea Shadow. He is the really, really cruel one in there, and you go around pursuing him because he ran off in there. You try to find out what happened to him, and eventually they go into the old Temple of Sauron, and that's where you have the raid and all that stuff in there. So you don't have to do the raid in order to continue, thankfully.
Yeah, the raid is hard even at tier 1, which is story mode.
Yeah, really, story mode indeed.
Pineleaf was very miffed when that came out as story
Yes.
mode. He's like, no! I don't like this.
That's not story mode.
You can still hear it in his voice.
I did eventually finish it because I went there with Ploy, and we eventually were able to take that out in there. Thanks to
Yep,
Ploy for helping with that.
for sure. That's how M got through, was with Ploy. And then Ploy leveled up, and we were just like, nope, we're good.
Yes, okay, we're good. Tier 1's good enough for us. Yes.
We got the story. We're good. You guys can keep going.
Yes. Then after that, we have the. After that, then we speak to Hamelech. And we actually had the great scene with the bird in there when we have a meeting between a Lord of Gondor and Belandor. Since at this point, this is where Belandor basically switches sides because what happens in the raid. Belandor becomes the first raid boss that you become friends with afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then at this point, Hamelech has decided that it is time to open up the Grand Hall. And that's where we. So we had that. There was another break there. Then they opened up the Grand Assembly Hall in there. We meet in there. This new dawn for Umbar, where the people can bring to there. And we are sent on a mission to find the beast. And eventually we go around underground. This is where they introduce the underground area. And we track down the beast in there. And we find that apparently she's some sort of Bjorning, it looks like. Right?
The beast is definitely a skin changer.
Yeah, it's definitely a skin changer. It looks more like a loth bear than a bear, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very definitely a giant, great bear. So I'm sure there'll be some story about. We must hear something about this someday later on, where we might encounter her again and find out exactly what her story is, because I think that would be very interesting.
Right?
But in the process of this, the cruel dancer is killed. Yeah, we run into her again because we run into the beast right after the beast killed Cruel Dancer, because Cruel Dancer has decided unwisely to continue her pursuit against Tanata the beast. And then that's done. And in fact, this is a little story arc in there where we have a naming and all of that. And that is it for now, because chapter 10 is going to be in the upcoming expansion pack. Boy, these explanations always take more than 10 minutes. I really need
Yes.
to edit these.
But then it wouldn't have the je ne sais quoi we are known for. I hope
Maybe
I
I
used
should have
that
said half an
correctly.
hour instead.
45 minutes.
Yeah.
We
All
should
right.
just put
Yeah.
a spoiler alert thing on the whole episode. So if you don't want to know, just don't jump in.
Now, we do after that do something called the Tales of the Kindred, which is, I guess, another type of interlude thing, where we do favors for the 4 remaining members of the Kindred of the Coin. Those are Koltek,
And
and with the
they
Bitlandor, the the golden, and we have and we have the storm.
And they are specifically tied to Umbar Milk.
Yeah.
By the end of the Tales of the Kindred, what I really liked is you actually do see Belandor go through this whole like redemption arc to where he is more himself and the man that used to be than he has been for a long time. So I really like that arc that they gave him.
Yeah, that was a very, very nice story arc in there, helping him find himself after getting into some pretty bad company. I guess it's the best way we could say there.
Yeah, well, and after being overcome with like so much anger and feeling like, because really he felt like he had been gone from being like a trusted part of Gondor to being ousted, like, and kicked
Right.
out. And the hurt that comes with that kind of fueled everything else. And then at the end, you have, that's when you have his story arc come all the way around where he goes, oh, like, when I was doing that stuff, I was stepping out of who I am. And no, these really are the ideals I live for, and this is what drives me. And you see him emerge as a stronger, better man at the end of it.
Yeah, and Sam says that I've probably forgotten most of this when I get there. I hope. So he listened to this whole thing despite.
Hey, some of us like knowing what's coming, even if we're not going to get there for a while.
I guess you got a point there. But anyway,
it's nice to know what the higher levels have available. Kind of keeps you wanting to keep playing.
All right. So, anyway, they leave it up to say that during the end of Belandor's storyline, though, we do find out where Osgoth's Sea Shadow went and which direction he's going, and I'm pretty sure that come expansion pack, we are going to be following that trail, and that's what's going to be bringing us into Near Harad.
Yep.
So let's now talk about other quests. Were there any other? Well, you did talk about, of course, the
one side quest without Amber.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of other side quests. There's one that I thought was really funny, where you go check on this librarian out in a cave. And she has all these books that she took out there to preserve so that they wouldn't get destroyed if the town was attacked. Right?
Right.
And so you're looking through all these books and you find this one really, really worn copy of a not Pinely friendly book. Which made me laugh. And it was funny to me because every now and again you get these little twists and you're like, oh, okay, like absolute humanity.
And the fact that she completely didn't realize that the war has been over for several weeks.
Oh yeah, because she's just been shut up in her cave, and nobody has.
Yeah, she's been shut up in her cave. Actually, for 3 months, considering that the war ended, late March, I believe it was, March 21st, and that the wedding, which of course which would be before all this entire storyline, because Arwen's already queen by the time we start this storyline, that the wedding is at Midsummer's Day. So we're talking about, at least 3 months have gone by before all this, and probably maybe a couple more after that. So
I think it was a dry cave, Sam.
Oh, yeah, it better be a dry. I think she chose the cave because it was dry enough to hold books.
Yeah. What I want to know is how she never ran out of food.
Yes. That is a
Like,
wonder. I mean, she really knew how to keep that.
she made that food last.
She made it
Um,
last all right for sure.
um,
Maybe
and
she was eating spider meat.
ooh, there weren't any spiders that big around there though.
Well, the other half of
Wasn't
the
there
cave is full of
wolves?
spiders.
Of her cave, I didn't think there were spiders in there. I don't remember running into
No, no,
spiders until we got to Umbar.
no. There were two branches from that cave. One of those branches led to spiders, and the other one led to her.
Oh.
Yo, yeah, there are spiders all over the place. Yeah, the one place where you
I
run into spiders is near that cave.
I was totally oblivious to that.
Yeah, you forgot. You scratched them from your mind.
Apparently, I remember the
Yes,
ones outside Umbar that we had to look all over creation for, and then we finally found them.
yes.
Cellulose takes a long time to digest.
Oh boy. Yeah, that was a
Yeah,
that was a real nice quest in there.
I don't.
And there was of course the one where you're in the dwarven area. And
Yes.
there's yes, they said, all right, so what I need to do, we haven't had anyone to help us win this game. So could you go to the top of there and bring this box to the top of this area for us?
Yep. Box
So you do
stacking
the
game.
right, you do the box. So we all do. They help them win. Then after we do that, we go to the foreman in there. He says, "Okay, yeah, don't worry. We let them have their fun in there." And then he says, "Oh, by the way, I need you to get a certain item from that area." And we go back there. It turns out that that box that we put on top was the box that held the item that we needed to get.
Yep.
So
And then doing all those quests for the goblins. In
yeah, for those for
in the
the
shield
orcs and the shield.
aisles.
Yeah,
Yeah, you actually get like a milepost to or a return to spot to an orc camp, and it's a spit over a fire, and that's where you get your return to skill as you help them out because they're trying to turn over a new leaf and become model citizens, which was kind of a fun quest line too.
yeah. So they and some of them were orcs that we helped in Gundabad.
Yes, the ones that we had helped escape in Gundabad, we meet again, and they're trying to turn over a new leaf with these orcs, and then like to complete. I think you actually probably have to do those quests to complete the meta deed for the shield.
Probably, I
'Cause
suspect in order to do that.
I think we did every single quest.
Well, yeah, we did enough in order to in order to complete the Shield Isles meta quest. I mean, that is like one of
Yeah.
the few times in a zone that we've done it at the time of release that we've actually managed to do the completionist one. And I think the only thing that we did not do, or at least that you didn't do, were the hunter camp ones that were added afterwards.
Yeah, and then there's one on Jack's or not Jack's Finale. Oh, that one, the last island before you go to Jack's Finale, not Halrax, but the other stop. There's one little quest ring that I need to go finish up. I noticed when we were running around doing the primals.
Oh, yeah, there is that. I forgot what that quest ring. Or actually, I think that quest ring was to collect the hammer from the something about that relates to the giant that's way up to the north.
Yeah, we didn't do that one.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the quest for the rock for the little duckling. That was cute.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, the duckling. Yes.
The one that's in the Halrax area, and it takes you down into the caldera, and you get to see this cute little duckling, and you get to meet this rock.
Yes.
And you help protect its eggs. Because people want to steal the rock eggs.
Actually, I should add that to
Mary Rose loved
list.
that duck quest too. Yep.
Yeah. Yes, love the duck. Yes, love the little one. And
And it
that
was
brings us in.
so adorable.
Yeah. Now let's go into mobs. And the new mobs that we run into, we ran into crabs all over the place.
Yes.
And in fact,
Starting
to make a
in Gondor.
starting in Gondor, that's where we first meet with the crabs as we go through that area. Some of them were in areas that were, I guess, the crabs didn't like darkness in there because we didn't see any crabs there when we were going through there the first time. So they must have scattered from the area or something,
Or
or
they
it
all
was the
got
wrong
eaten.
season for them.
Or
Or
they
it's the
all
wrong.
got eaten.
Or they all gotten eat. That's right. Maybe the Corsairs just ate all the crabs in the area.
I mean, crab meat is delicious.
Yeah. So anyway, in fact, we spent a lot of time collecting crab meat.
Oh, yes. And killing crabs because there are deeds for crabs.
Yeah. Yes, there was a deed for killing crabs. I think two deeds because one for shield outs and one for the cape, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Yep. So
And
doing
we
it.
did both. You're
Yep.
welcome.
So yes. So we had crabs in there, and next thing that we had, the other new known is something I mentioned before during the epic quest line. Those were the lions.
Yep.
Yeah,
Those
so-
were a surprise to me. I was not expecting to see lions. So that was a fun and interesting addition to have them. And there's a deed for killing them, too. So we went and found Pride Rock. Well, the LOTRO equivalent, Pride Rock. But I felt bad killing the cubs because they were so cute.
Yes.
So we ended up taking longer to complete the deed because I had too much of a soft heart for the cubs.
All right. Yeah. Now, probably for one that you had less of a soft heart for the third one were crocodiles.
Well, those ones didn't really get in our way. We accidentally found those. We were looking for something else and stumbled upon the crocodiles. And then we found out you could get croctails. Oh, can we name them Howard, Donald, Daffy, Daisy, Huey, Dewey, Louie? Disney might come for us if we named the duck. The crocodiles were kind of an interesting take, and they counted as them as worms. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that was my one complaint about the early release of the game was that you could only get worms along one little stretch of beach and have it count for your deed. Every other worm you encountered in the whole Cape of Umbar did not count, and that was so frustrating.
Fortunately, they did eventually amend that.
Yes, they did. And then it was really funny. Some of the insects you could kill in the Cape of Umbar were for the King's Gondor deed.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because there was no insect deed for the Cape of Umbar.
Yep.
So they counted for the Gondorian one instead. Though they may have patched that one eventually.
Yeah, I think they did eventually make them count for the right thing, because the ones in King's Gondor did not count for King's Gondor at all. So that was a fun little discovery as well.
Yeah. Then, now, fourth one I have is that they did add rocks in there, as we were discussing earlier, that we read one. Actually, I know of two rocks that are in this one. If I'm assuming that the one that Legolas at one time sees a flying creature up in the sky, and I'm assuming that's a rock that he saw up there. It might have been the one that we helped in there. So there's one that we helped in there in the review quest for us, but there's also one in an instance called the Isle of Storms, where the final boss is a rock.
And that rock does not like us.
Not like us at all.
So I'm going to go with that is not the one we helped.
Yes. No, that was a completely different rock. Yes. So,
the one that we helped loved us at the end because we saved their egg.
Yes. Now, what I'm wondering, though, is were there any other mobs that I missed in this list? Because I think those are all the new mobs. I mean, these are mobs that we haven't had in the past or anything like this. Because obviously we had all sorts of old mobs that we had before.
Yeah, like shades, horns, salamanders, bog lurkers.
And we had the
I
Corsair
mean,
goblins, but they're still goblins, you know.
yeah, well, I mean, and then you have like the Corsairs themselves, which, I
You've
mean,
been
we've
fighting for
encountered
a long time.
Corsairs for a while, and same thing with the Haradrim.
Right.
Um, spiders, bugs.
Yeah, all sorts of things like that, which you've met several times in the past.
Yeah.
So you meet again. And as for
Goats.
new critters, we have parrots is
I
for
didn't really see them like flying around though. They were just the pets that we were given.
yeah, well, we at least had them for pets. Whether there might
Yeah.
have been just for that. I can't remember if there are any parrots in there at all.
And
And then
then,
macaques.
yep. And the macaques were just for looks.
Yeah, the macaques were just there for looks, and they're on mark. And of course, you get your own housing decoration, a, a macaque rock for that.
Yep.
And finally, instances. Oh, actually, that's right. I forgot to ask for grades on this. On the epic, what kind of? Let's go back. The epic quest. What kind of grade did you give the
Mm,
epic quest line?
give it an A. I feel like there was solid writing. And Cinders is spelled with an A.
Yeah, I was beginning to wonder about that. Let's see.
So I don't know that I'd give it an A plus, but definitely an
Oh,
A.
so sorry. There's A. Okay, get an A there. And let's see. I think I'll add the plus to mine. All right.
Okay.
And for quests in general,
I really liked it. We'll give it an A plus. I thought they were funny and well written.
okay. And I think I had one or two maybe on that, so I'm going to drop it down to an A. So we're sort of
Okay.
swapping on the. Okay, for mobs, crabs, lions, crocodiles, and mainly those three, since we only fight one rock in the entire thing, and that's in an instance where a boss that's intentionally made tough. So
I'm going to knock it to an A just because the crabs did not always spawn as designed. Case in
yeah.
point, in the instances, even though I'm lumping all those crabs together. I did like the respawn time on all of them, though. That made it so it wasn't too terrible for deeding. They had a good respawn time on all of them.
Yeah, I think they fit the area.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, while we did run into a couple of ridiculously sized crabs in there, I mean, what else is new? I mean, this is LOTRO.
Well, I mean, if it can produce giant spiders, the land can sustain giant crabs.
Right, I mean, most of the crabs you face are actually realistically sized, but
Yep.
you do run into some of these ultra sized ones that seem to be about the size of a coconut crab.
Which, I mean, still is realistically sized if you think about it.
Yeah, but a coconut crab is proportioned in such a way that it could be sustained, because I think that's the only reason why it could be as large as it is. These arthropods have some issues in being able to breathe on land usually, unless they're small.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I sometimes think that LOTRO is spending. Sometimes I think LOTRO is set during the Carboniferous, but based on how big the arthropods get.
Right.
All right. Well, the critters. We're not going to grade the critters.
No,
So,
I don't think that's fair to grade them.
yeah. So let's go into the instances. We have the Isle of Storms, which is a 3-player instance, and all these have, well, except for the raid, of course, have the 1- 2-player versions in addition to the main one. So the Isle of Storms is a 3-player instance, which is somewhere in the Shield Isles, and you have to chase down finding what's causing the storms in the area. It turns out to be the Rock, of course, which is the final boss in here. And I don't know, I found that one annoying.
I did not like that one, but the only time I ran it as, was it a Runekeeper and a Guardian, and then I ran it as 2 Guardians. And the only time we made it all the way through was with 2 guardians. And we died and died and died and died. Like just even trying to get through the first boss.
Oh yeah, that crocodile at the start is nasty.
I think, okay, so I'm just going to, looking at your list here, we can go into each one individually. But I think I would give it an overall grade of B for the ones that I've done. Because it was not, I don't feel like it was well balanced or well considered and really ready for release when they released it. I think there were a lot of issues with each of the instances with balance, with things triggering and running appropriately. And I really was not happy with this instance cluster.
Well, the Isle of Storms where, yeah, because that one was just...
That one was miserable, and then I think you and I ran streets together, and that one was miserable because you would get those overlapping things you couldn't clear and you couldn't get out of because it took the entire street, and we died and died and died. I didn't do the arena, so I can't speak to that one.
Well, that's the 6-player one, and I've never. Well, I've done it. I've done the solo version, the duo version, which aren't bad, but the 6-player is brutal. Is probably the best word for it. And yeah, I don't think I've ever finished the 6-player version of the arena, and I don't think we've ever come close to finishing it. The raid, it required us to get help from Ploy.
Yeah. Well, but you expect a raid to be hard.
Yes, but when they said, don't worry, tier 1 will be story mode.
Yeah, that's a real good indicator that the balance was off.
Yeah, because I have a feeling that the main group that raids are made for had some influence on what tier 1 is like. They must have thought it was too easy or something. The problem is though, that's why it was supposed to be story mode. Well,
so here's my understanding of what a story mode raid should be like. You should be able to get in, and it should be very much like what we did in Mordor with the one raid, was it Lyrith's? Or whatever that one raid was in that instance cluster, where we could go in with 12 people, and we could sustain ourselves enough that we could hear all the story and not constantly be killed just trying to advance the story. And with this being so closely connected to the actual story itself, I feel like they did a real disservice to the average player who doesn't play raid ready. Because it took weeks and weeks and weeks of playing with Ploy and grinding and working on gear to be ready to get through that. And as somebody who plays for story more than gear, that was discouraging. And frankly, I think if they're going to do a raid that way at tier 1, it needs to not be connected to the story. It needs to be completely optional. Simply for the reason that it becomes inaccessible to your average player who isn't raid ready or who doesn't have the connections. Because if we hadn't had connections to Ploy, we wouldn't have gotten through it. And then I don't know that a Mythgard pug group could even get through it. You know?
Because the Mythgard pug group tried it a couple of times and we completely failed.
Yeah. So, like, the fact that you can have a well-established kin that plays regularly who still can't do it, that's problematic to me. So, actually, we could probably... I'm going to stick with a B just because I'm giving some bonus to Arena and Dragon in the Storm because I didn't actually ever do those ones. But I really... This instance cluster, I think, was the worst one that I've actually seen come out. And I mean, I was playing Cinders proper as a Ariad character in Mordor and doing those instances. And as a lore master, she didn't even struggle the way that this particular instance cluster has been a struggle.
Yeah.
And
Right,
so,
because Isle of Storms, I was most easily able to do it with a war. No, with a lore master. But
mhm.
other classes, I had a lot of trouble with that one. Street is annoying, but I would say the solo version was annoying but doable. As the arena solo version is easy. The six-player version was tough. So I would say that was probably designed for more serious players.
Mhm.
Okay, the raid, yeah, I'm sorry. Tier one was not story mode in my opinion. That's all I gotta say about that one. And I would say that yes, throttle things back a little bit on the tier one in there. I mean, yes, the higher tiers, yes, fine, you do. And those obviously should have to be really, really, really tough. But tier one, if you're going to advertise as story mode, then make it story mode.
Well, and if you're
Dragon
going
in
to
this,
make it connected to the story where you can't advance the story without it, it has to be easier.
well, you can advance the story without it. It's just that you hear all these references to what happened inside there, and you haven't.
I don't know that you can complete the quest chain without it.
Oh yeah, I was able to. Yeah, no problem. I have characters that completed the quest chain without ever having done the raid.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a problem. No, it's not mandatory, but it does it does
It makes everything
elaborate
afterwards
on a
make
great deal.
sense.
Yeah, it does elaborate a great deal on what happens in there. It's just that when you get to that point in the storyline, this is where the raid takes place. So if you want to do it, this is a good time to do it. But
Yeah.
doing it on demand is rather tough, I think.
Yeah, you can't.
Sam says hardcore story.
Yes, it definitely was hardcore story mode.
Yes. All right. And all right, so that's and then the Dragon and the Storm. I've done that one. I've done that in 1, 2, and 6. In 1 and 2, I think it's too easy.
Which
Yeah,
is why I should do it
I
now.
yeah, I think it was actually. I think that yeah, they are planning to do some rebalancing for it. I'll have to see. I think maybe I'm hoping they put it into a proper level. In other words, that they don't turn it into another Isle of Storms or anything like that. And then the six-player version is tough, tough, tough. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but boy, did they make that a tough. Now there is a leading the charge deed connected with this. So it could be that if there's a leading the charge deed connected with it, I could see why a high bar level is going to be on there. So that
Oh,
means that
yeah.
I should not worry about that's which reminds me is on the raid usually lead the charge ones don't start till I think the first lead the
I
charge one
believe
was at
they start
tier
at tier
3.
3. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they start at tier 3 on the raid. So
Yeah.
yeah, but Dragonstorm tier 1, the six-player version, Mythgard could not finish it. Not no, we couldn't even get anywhere near finishing that one.
Yeah.
And then finally, missions.
So, aside from the one mission with the wonky graphics at the beginning, I feel like overall missions at the base level were not bad. I felt like they were pretty good. They were interesting. And I liked that you could tier them up if you wanted to for the difficulty, but you didn't have to. And they did end up fixing the one that was all wonky with the crabs. So
Yes, the one where the crabs were invading the ship and all.
yeah, well, and when you had the different levels, and then you had the really weird graphic disruption, and
Oh yeah, that was it. That was a bit of a pain in there.
That was difficult for somebody who was struggling with visual issues at the time.
Yes.
But
And then
other
they
than that,
well,
I was
yeah,
pretty happy with them.
yeah. Then they later added an 11th one after that. So
Yeah, I don't know if I did the 11th one.
yeah. But anyway, yeah, I think there were a good set of missions that we had in there. So overall, you gave the instances a B. I gave them a C because I did a few more of them, and
Did not like what you saw.
eh, okay, it could use a little work in the
Finally,
map.
I came, I saw, and was not pleased.
So, how about our overall scores then? Let's see.
I think overall, looking at the averages here, we would probably average out. I would average out at about an A. Maybe low A, high B plus.
All right, so
Let's go with A.
you'll go with A.
Overall, an A. Not real happy about instances, but I liked everything else.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's sort of fair enough. A very nice, solid expansion pack.
Yeah, just the instances could have used some more work and probably some more time on Bullroar to get the balancing and graphics correct before launch.
Yes. And that is it for our Quest Pack review on that. So let's go into our week in gaming. Or actually, I guess I should go into my week in gaming. It sounds like you didn't do much.
I did nothing gaming related this week, and I am probably not going to do anything gaming related next week because I just won't be home. So.
You won't be home. You are going to be very, 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 very busy.
I will be home in the afternoon on Thursday, and the rest of the time I am burning the candle at both ends, and it's going to be a long
Homecoming
weekend.
week sounds fun.
Yeah. Oh.
All right. Then my lower level warden helped the Rangers at Sarn Ford to help defend that, and I guess in some ways defend the Shire. And my minstrel finally resumed the Song of Waves and Wind storyline. I had stopped around the same time. I think my minstrel was thinking of pairing with somebody else in order to finish it or something like that. And ultimately I decided, all right, fine, I better go and just finish it myself. It's been, 6 months or something like that?
Your minstrel was paired with Alexarian and I think Sans's warden.
Right. So,
or brawler or whatever, and then we just haven't played. So
yeah, so I haven't played it. So my minstrel resumed that storyline in there, and I did get to the point of doing the original storyline, but now I'm just getting underground so that I could get started in hunting for the beast. And then in DDO, Drac and I started up our adventures in Myth Draenor. If you would like to send us an email, you can send it to podcast@lotraplayers.com. The Players Alliance has 2 shows each week. On Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Standard Time, we record LOTRO Players News and we record DDO Players News when Drac is available. And you can listen to our shows at lotraplayers.com/live. And that's all for tonight then. This is Pilot Needles reminding you to quest responsibly.